Very, very important video right here. We're going to look at some words and phrases that are important to build a flow, and we're going to look at the use of them. Going from basic to advanced, I have 5 slides here for you. The reason I'm making this video is because in writing and speaking, I notice students missing these things very often. When I give feedback, I tell a lot of students, your flow is missing, and they ask what that is all about. In the examiner marking scheme for writing and speaking, you have marks for a flow. Now, this is how one thing is linked to the other. So this thing gives you so many marks. It gives you marks in linking the other parts, which is the direct mark for flow. Indirectly, though, it gives you marks for the range of vocabulary, because when you insert connectors, phrases, which are mixtures of connectors and phrasal verbs, which we'll look at in this video, you get marks for the range of vocab because you extend your range. It even gives you marks for structure, and in some cases it gives you marks for task response because these words and phrases help the examiner understand when you jumped from one point to the other, because sometimes we do that and the examiner cannot see that. So this will also help the examiner understand your task response. Now, what we're going to start with here is something I recommend and don't recommend as well. Firstly, secondly, thirdly are problematic, but also great. They are kind of basic because everybody uses them. Okay, so I don't recommend you trying to use this many times, but I highly recommend you using this in speaking parts 1 and 7. Parts 1 and 7 are the 90-second questions where you're supposed to give 3 points. And if you don't know how to structure that, check out our speaking templates in the description. There's a video for that. Now, when you do organize your points, examiners, for some reason, up to now, still love if you say firstly, secondly, thirdly. For those 2 questions, it's specific. It's a criteria you should always follow, and they just love it. And people score good marks when they do that. So just keep doing that only for that part, but for any other speaking part and for writing, do not use these words because they are they're very basic in my opinion. I wouldn't use them, but examiners like it for parts 1 and 7 in speaking only. Let's move on to this thing because this is the second most common thing that I notice. On the one hand, on the other hand. There's no specific question in writing and speaking where you can use it. I wouldn't say you should use it here. You can use it in any case. In fact, I would prefer you use it in speaking more than writing, because in speaking, we cannot always think about very advanced words. Sometimes I want to say accordingly as a connector, but I can't think of it because I'm speaking and I'm in fast speed. So I think of something basic like also or plus, which is also great because it helps me connect anyway. So using these phrases on the one hand, on the other hand, in speaking will give you a good flow. It'll give you fluency, and it also helps you think. So when you jump from one point to the other, maybe you don't know what the second point is going to be. But if you say a long phrase like on the other hand or on the one hand, it gives you at least a couple of seconds where you're saying this, and you can think about the second point within those seconds. That's why these kinds of phrases as connectors in speaking are better than short connectors like also, because also is fast and now you don't know your second point. You have no thinking time. So it is good. In writing though, I would not recommend using this. And I know a lot of you do this, and that's why I don't recommend it, because you guys do this all the time. It's not unique, it's not advanced. Everybody is using these words. So it's better you jump to more advanced words for writing, because that's what examiners expect in writing. And here we are. So this slide is the third one out of the 5. Here, the starting phrase is to begin with. Of course, whenever you start a new point, you start with to begin with, and you state your main point there. Here, you put a comma. Okay, to begin with, you put a comma after that, and then state your next point. Moving on to will make this sentence complex. In fact, all 3 of these, moving on to, given that, and based on, will all be complex sentences because with these connectors, you will say 2 things in one sentence. For example, moving on to the issue of birds dying because of diseases, comma, Dr. Claire made it clear that it would not happen in future. So there's 2 points to this, and that makes it a complex sentence, which is good for your marks. So moving on to could be a perfect flow to the next point you're going to do after to begin with. Now, given that, again, this is unique because we're not just saying moving on to, and then the third thing is, and then lastly. That is very basic. Almost everybody does that. We're not doing that. We're using a connector, and we can address the previous thing that was said using this connector while moving on to our next point. For example, you go from a paragraph where you mention the positives, and then you go to the negatives. You can say, given that this thing has many advantages, equally, there are cons as well, and then you get into your cons. It's a beautiful way to connect one thing to the other. And based on could be used in a similar way, but it's really nice in the conclusion. You could say based on the aforementioned reasons, based on whatever I mentioned here, based on this entire topic, and then go with your conclusion. Okay, all these phrases are very useful for writing and for speaking. Now, this is where I was really happy to put this on the slide, because this is where I think you get, I know you guys will score great marks, and you need to understand the use of the 4 things here. Conspicuously, and I'm going to talk about this as well, surprisingly. Why I put these here is because people don't use connectors like these. People don't use lees. And these lees, quickly, slowly, are adverbs, which give you your marks for the range of vocabulary. The more you have these, the better. But when you're writing or speaking, sometimes we cannot think that fast because we're not used to it using adverbs, and you have a timer. So if you can just insert these in your, basically as templates, in fact, conspicuously is a part of our templates. If you can use this as connectors or templates or words that are in your memory that you can always use when you connect one point to the other, you would always get that mark for adverb because you will be able to insert it naturally. So conspicuously means clearly or obviously, but of course we're going to use a more advanced word, which is why I chose conspicuously. And you say conspicuously and then mention your first point. In light of, again, is a great connector. It is a phrase. It's also unique. And here you could talk about in light of the things mentioned before, in light of the things I said before, or in light of this topic, comma, I have this to say. In speaking, of course, in light of whatever, then you pause, and then the next point in the sentence. Surprisingly, it's just everything is surprising, okay? It doesn't have to be something surprising. I can say surprisingly it's -2 today. I can say surprisingly it's -40 today. Doesn't matter. Every time you can use surprisingly, unless it's something very, very common. So you can say surprisingly, a lot of people have been affected by whatever. Surprisingly, this theory does not go well with other people, whatever. You can use this as a connector for any point, literally. And it adds a li, it has flow. And what you can see here is we got one word, 3 words, 1 word, and then 4 words. This is done on purpose because we are doing your range of vocab, throwing in a good mix of words and phrases, not just keeping everything the same. Finally, you would finish off with another very complex, advanced, and unique phrase in the context of. In the context of everything I mentioned here, in the context of our discussion today, there's your conclusion. Okay? So very useful things to use. And finally, these are the contradictions when you say however and but we don't want to say however and but, we want to use something more advanced. Now here, I'm not talking about a flow. I'm saying your topics are going to have 2 sides. You're going to have contradictions. So when you get the chance to use but or however, use nonetheless instead. When you move from one point to another, opposite directions, you have a major shift in tone. You can say, for example, in spite of the many advantages this provides, the disadvantages are, and go on with that. Okay? So it helps you connect that, and it's again unique. People don't usually use in spite of. Although is also a great replacement for but or however. Just remember it's used at the start of the sentence. For example, although I am sick today, I'm still going to go to work. Okay, so make sure you use it at the start, not in the middle. So these would be placed anywhere in your speaking and writing when you are building flow with opposite points. So instead of saying however or but, use these ones. And I hope this lesson helps in understanding the variety of phrases you need to use. And sometimes you can use the basic ones, but try not to mostly. And I hope this also helps you understand the range of vocab that is important. Next lesson, very important, we're going to cover idiomatic expressions, so please subscribe and we'll upload that next week. Also, there's more updates coming to the CELPIP course. For details, you can check out the link in the description. The sale, the promotion is still on, so check it out. You will receive the coupon code on the website, and you can avail the 20% discount as well. Good luck.